Good morning, salute. Turn that down a little bright. A little bright. Huh? The lighting get a little better here. Will that help? Nah, it's just more clear. Whatever. Those of you on the replay, I'm just waiting for the notifications to go out. So I'll run my mouth here in a second, then I'll cut off because this ain't going to be a long one. But it seems like the lives are the only ones that get any kind of traction anymore. So that's just the format that I'll be using. I'll be doing it live. Got to get properly caffeinated. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, some people are starting to arrive. Like I said, I got to make this quick, guys, because I got to get going here in a little bit. I just saw a clip from Timcast, IRL, Tim Pool. And I knew that Vice President Vance was going to be filling in for Charlie Kirk at Turning Point USA on his show. I missed it. So I'm going to have to go back and watch the replay. But Tim showed a clip that I thought that was very powerful. Evidently, Charlie was a close personal friend of J.D. Vance, who, by the way, is the current vice president, but also has an excellent chance of becoming our next president of the United States. And then he would be there for 8 years after Trump. So they have just opened up a can of whoop ass that they may be feeling the ramifications for at least the next 11 years. You need to realize what you have done on the left and the beatings you're about to receive by the actions of your own ideology. My normal people that like to argue with me all the damn time on my channel because they're leftists. They like to play this little gotcha game. Oh man, I'm gonna trip TC up there, or I'm gonna twist his words there, and oh, what about him in this? What about him in that? Guys, that bullshit's gone. That's over. Your trip ups and logical pretzels and all this other stuff that you're trying to propagate is what's retarded. It's retarded. This is much more serious than just regular old banter between rivals online. What I saw from that clip of Vance was rage. Rage. And it's only beginning. Oh, my comments are finally working. All right, hold on, guys. No. Well, for some people, yeah. Yeah, for some people, I agree. Yes, there has been a bulwark. There's been a bulwark on the more extreme actions that people wanted to take further into the right than what was Charlie Kirk. Because he was trying to temper their actions with a heavy dose of Christianity, which is a religion of tolerance. A lot of people out there don't want to be tolerant anymore. You need to realize that. He literally was one of the dams holding back the right from issuing a correction on this country. You need to realize that. Kirk was the moderate. I have no idea what TND is. Kirk was a moderate, and they shot him. Yeah. Guys, that's over. You are going to see for the rest of this year, and I would say it's going to set the tone for the remainder of this administration for Trump. You're going to see some shit. People are fed up. And this is what happens. What, good, bad, or indifferent, this is what happens. Weak times create strong men. Strong men come in and they enforce order upon society because the society is clamoring for it. So they want the heavy hand of justice to come in, turn a blind eye to the usual machinations of law and order. Just come in, kick everyone's ass that's causing a problem, bring back normalcy to society, and then fuck off into the sunset because he's an old man. What you truly have to worry about are people waiting in the wings like a Rubio or Vance, because those are relatively young men as far as politicians go, and they're going to be around a long, long time. A long, long time. And there's nobody on the left right now that has the cult of personality, the charisma that even Vance or Rubio have at this moment. The closest you have is an out in the open communist in AOC who won't be able to win outside of Brooklyn, and Gavin Newsom, who has already been recalled once in his own state because of his ineptitude in governance. And, it was on loud and clear display not that long ago with Mayor Bass down in LA, because even though California is a coastal state, they can't figure out water. And they don't know how to turn the water from Northern California to Southern California, even though their forefathers had the forethought to build a canal to transfer said water. They have allowed too many wackadoo policies that are now destroying their society. It's no surprise as to why the working people in California, you realize a lot of the homeless out there in California are actually working poor. They have jobs. They have just been priced out of their own neighborhoods. And why did that happen? It's because of leftist ideology. All the ills happening in California at this moment are because of the progressive communist Marxist policies. They allowed in a flood, a tidal flood, a tsunami, you would say, of illegals to infiltrate into California, and they did not allow for the building of more homes because of EPA regulations. And therefore, housing prices spiked to astronomical levels where the people that lived there for generations can no longer afford to live in their own town. And then Biden tried to do that for the rest of America. And people are upset. That's just one facet I can think off the top of my head. Businesses rise, businesses fail, businesses succeed. Most businesses fail. That's just a fact of reality. I don't like to see it happen, but it happens. There's no guarantee in life other than death and taxes. And it's not a theory. It's not a theory. Documents have already come out where the Democrats have already plainly in clear English expressing that sentiment that the citizenry was going to be diluted with foreign nationals to fortify the elections. If you need an example, look what they did to Minnesota, an area that was settled by Scandinavians that somehow has a huge voting bloc of Somalis, and they have elected one of their own as a representative. You don't think that's done on purpose? You're out of your damn mind. That's not anything but clear, cold, hard logic. Yeah, they are. You can call me whatever you want, but you can't call me wrong. There's nothing racist about making that observation. When you put in a bunch of one type of group that's not from there, and you tip the balance of power in a political system, and they start voting their own in, what does that tell you? So he's saying Ilhan Omar would have naturally become the representative without a large Somali contingent there in Minneapolis? Are you saying that? That she just came over with her family just by herself and ran? You think she would have won without all of her people being there? You think they would not be trying to run a Somali mayor from Minneapolis? Are you kidding me? Can we let's be real for a moment, please? It's not boomer politics. It's the truth. I'm saying it was unfettered immigration that they purposely brought in, and they singled out certain areas across the United States to tip the balance of power into the Democrats' favor. That's what I'm saying. Because that's exactly what happened. And that's what they were trying to do again. Do you not understand this? Do you not look at the elections and to see how close they are? Even as retarded of a candidate as Kamala Harris was, it was still too close to call. Yes, I know Trump trounced her. He won the popular vote and the Electoral College. But we are down to not just states that are disputed in the election. We're down to the county level right now. You understand that? You sway a few counties across the United States, it flips that state in the Electoral College for one person or the other. You start bringing in a bunch of people from across the world, and you promise them the sun, moon, and the stars out of the public's largesse, they're going to vote for it. No, I'm not. No, we won it fair. We won it legitimately. We had to come out in so large of numbers that it could not have been stolen again like it was in 2020. Because mail-in ballots, by the way, are election fraud. not to be confused with an absentee ballot. They're not the same thing. So don't get it twisted. Yeah. Yeah, well. They burned the evidence. Did you look, man? You want an example of they got rid of the evidence? Do you not remember when the Cyber Ninjas came in, an independent organization brought in by the Arizona legislature to do a forensic audit of the election? The 2020 election. Not talking about Hobbs and Lake's election, which, by the way, they came out later on and said, oops, Hobbs didn't actually win, but it's too late now. Hobbs is already the governor. We're not going to give the governorship to Lake, even though Lake, turns out, she won that. Hello? They're not going to give up power willingly, even when they legitimately lose. But when the Cyber Ninjas came in, and they were doing the audits of the Dominion machines, well, lo and behold, the hard drives were wiped literally a couple of hours prior to when the audit was supposed to take place. And it wasn't just on one machine, it was on many, many machines. And then they brought that to the Arizona legislature. Say, look, we have an absence of material to audit because the machines were wiped, even though they were told not to do it. They damn well did it anyway. That happened. So whereas they say, hey, we couldn't prove, it's because they wiped all the evidence away. It's kind of like Hillary, right? Well, you can't prove the emails on the server that was in her closet or on the phones of her staffers because, well, they smashed all the phones and they bleach bit the server to wipe everything out that it couldn't be traced. So, oops. My phone accidentally ran into a ball peen hammer repeatedly for me and 20 of my besties. Sorry. It's not lies. It's not lies. While he was president, yes. And while he was president, it was perfectly legal. And by the way, all the modern presidents have taken documents home with them when their administration's done. They all do it. As you saw with Biden, with the big box of classified documents in his garage parked next to his Corvette. All right? Spare me. It did not warrant a raid to his home and having a potential conflict between the Secret Service and the FBI. That would have, by the way, would have been entertaining. I would have liked to see what would have happened with that. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, good, bad, or indifferent. You know, my opinion doesn't really matter. I'm just calling it like I sees it. I'm just calling it like I see it. Kirk was a moderate. He was assassinated by a leftist. Now, whether he was transgender or not, I don't know. I think it's pretty clear that he was homosexual. But be that as it may, there are plenty of conservative homosexuals out there. So that doesn't necessarily define your political leanings. But I think there's enough evidence at the scene that this particular guy was working in a kind of a cell, a splinter cell. And they're going to hunt them down. They're going to go get them. They're going to go get him. And they're going to make examples out of him. He was moderate. Yes, he was. He absolutely was. Yeah, he was a right-wing moderate. Not the shooter, Kirk. Yeah. You don't want to know. You don't want to know. Things have gotten so bad, you don't want to know what we potentially could be on the receiving end here on these United States. And by the way, it's not just here. It's spreading across Western civilization and parts of Southeast Asia. Indonesia, Nepal, right? Sri Lanka, I mean, that they had a regime change last year under Biden. Germany is desperately trying to keep AfD at bay because they just assassinated 7 of their candidates. Don't know if that's going to slow them down or not. France, their coalition, their parliamentary coalition to keep a government just collapsed, so they're going to have to call yet another snap election. And that could net more seats for Le Pen, which is what they're desperately trying to avoid, but now they can't because their coalition's weak. They're trying to keep the strong at bay. The right-leaning parties in Europe are the majority parties. The leftists are trying to do everything they can in their power to keep these people from taking office because they see what happens with Trump and they see the success that Trump is having and cleaning up in not even a year. And they're scared, and they should be. Because we're at war with the cartels, because we have classified them as terrorist organizations. The drug cartels are no different than Al-Qaeda or ISIS at this point. So yes, they are KIA, or KOA, excuse me, kill on sight, or KOS. I need another sip of coffee, guys. KOS, kill on sight. We're killing each other. No, we're not. We don't have gangs of right-leaning people out here beating the crap out of each other, swarming stores, and just generally causing terror. That's not a thing. At least in the United States. I can't speak for Europe. It's not happening over here. You have organizations like Antifa that are domestic terrorists, right? You have George Soros and his foundation, which, by the way, they were called out by President Vance during that Turning Point USA clip. So yeah, when I get done here, when I get down the road, I'm gonna have to go listen to that because it's gonna set the tone. It's gonna set the tone on how they're going to fix things. George Soros is a Hungarian Nazi who also happens to be Jewish that he literally sold his own people out for packs of cigarettes during World War II. And when that ended, he became a financier and a currency manipulator. There you go. That's George Soros. Oh man, Goggly, I was going to ask you for the $50. My channel's monetized. You could throw me a super chat. I mean, I'll take it. But I was going to ask you for the money. I'm sorry. Because they are leftists. They are National Socialists. I don't know how many speeches you have to hear of Hitler saying, "I am a socialist." They are. They just they didn't believe in the global workers' revolution. They just wanted to fix Germany, so they were nationalists. but all their policies mirrored the Soviets as far as the internal machinations of their how they ran their country after they took the Reichstag. I don't know what that is. What is the Jewish conspiracy? Do Jews exist? Yeah, I think they do. There you go. That's a Jewish conspiracy. Yeah. By the way, if you're just looking at pure body count, the Soviets were much worse than the Nazis ever could be. And then Mao doubled down on that. And if you want to go per capita, Pol Pot said, hold my beer. I know precisely what Marxism is. And I've already explained to you what it was in a prior live feed. I'm sorry that you did not view it, but it is still up for your perusal. I am indifferent to Israel, to be perfectly honest. They have been friends and foes, and all I care about right now is not getting sucked into their blood feud with the Palestinians, because I don't give a fuck about them either. I just really couldn't. It might as well be on the other side of the moon to me. I don't give a fuck. Just don't involve America. They're going to go out there and kill each other. They're going to learn not to get along and call each other animals and whatever. Fine. Don't give a shit. Go spill your blood on that sandy patch of hard scrabble and leave me the fuck out of it. That's what I got to say about it. Yeah. Well, he's selling the Israelis weapons because that's what we do. We're capitalists. We sell goods and services. Sure. Oh, make it no mistake. If we have to choose a side, we're going to side with Israel because Israel is still technically, I think, as an ally, and they have nukes. They have enough nukes to glass every population center in the Middle East. So the Jews aren't going anywhere. So choosing Palestine is a fool's errand. Just being straight up. The Jews aren't going anywhere. They have all the military hardware, they have the money, and they can buy more ammunition from us or NATO. They're not going anywhere. And I'm just talking about the latest events. The latest events, this is entirely the Palestinians' fault, specifically Hamas, for October 7th. They attacked Israel, a superior opponent, and I mean that as militarily. They attacked a soft target event in a concert, and they came in like a bad G.I. Joe episode from the 80s, coming in paragliders and shit, like Cobra Commander, like Cobra! And they raped and pillaged and burned their way and took hostages, and it pissed a lot of the Israelis off. A lot of the moderate Israel, it's the Kirk effect, right? You may have had a lot of moderate Israelis like, look, man, they got Gaza, we control the water, the electricity, they got to come to us for their economy, for their jobs, right? And as long as we're getting along and we hold that, then everything's going to maintain a certain level of peace, until it didn't. And then they had to look at the Palestinians running roughshod through these little, I forget what the hell they call them, little commune farms out there in Israel, and they're dragging their daughters through the streets half dead so they can go be raped and then finally killed later on. It pissed the moderates off, where they got, you know what, Netanyahu, I'm going to get out of your way. Ole. Go send the bulls in. And that's what they did. And that's what's going to happen with Kirk. The moderates are going to be like, you know what? We've tried to peace and tolerance. Obviously, the message is not getting through because it's not being reciprocated. We're just going to get the hell out of the way and keep our head down so we can't see what's going on, because shit's about to go down. It's kind of like that. The Kirk assassination, it will be kind of akin to October 7th for the Israelis. Yeah. Well, regardless of the administration, we were never going to allow Iran to have a nuke. So that was never going to happen. And we warned them and 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 warned them. And they kept going and going and going, thinking that we're not going to do anything because the last 20 years of presidents didn't, at least openly. And Trump was like, nah, that ain't me. I'm a man of action. I'm bombastic. And I'm very orange. I'm very orange. I'm the orangest one of all. And Iran, I'm not going to allow you to have a nuke. It's just not going to happen. I tried to warn you. I tried being reasonable. You know what? Trump blew up their mountain. He destroyed a mountain. A mountain. And now Iran does not have nukes. And now Iran's behaving. And we're not talking about invading Iran right now, are we? So, as far as I'm concerned, things were settled. It does. It does. It was meant to be cheesy and bad on purpose. But he's still very orange. The Nazi Party was not far right. If you're any kind of a student of history, you would have realized he loosely based the Nazis off the fascists. The fascists were all avowed socialists. Hitler himself were socialists, so were all of his lieutenants and sergeants and brown shirts. The brown shirts were converted communists that he got out of Berlin. Go look it up. Their ideologies and methodologies are very similar. Just that one wanted to, just one had a class component to it, and the other one had a racial component, right? Because it was a different system. The Russians were pissed at the Tsar, so they got tired of the royalty and the nobility classes, and they thought they were keeping them down, which they were, to be fair. So they fixated on class, whereas the Nazis had their royalty hadn't been around, but not even 100 years, with the rise of Bismarck and Wilhelm I, and they were beaten down by the Treaty of Versailles so bad that it caused a lot of problems with the Weimar Republic, and yeah, the rest is history. Now, let's be honest. Would you have given a shit about the Nazis if they didn't go after the Jews? And what specifically do you not like about Mussolini and his fascism? Who did he ultimately fuck? Mussolini, he didn't care about Jews. There were plenty of Jews in his fascist party. Over 10,000, as a matter of fact. Over 10, you realize that? He didn't care as long as you were Italian first. Right? They didn't care about Mussolini and his fascist regime until he invaded Ethiopia. That's it. He invaded Ethiopia, and that got the old powers that lost their empire bent out of shape because they lost their empire after World War I. They didn't want to see another European power going out there and getting a one-upment on them by going back into Africa. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. By the way, the West didn't give a shit about what Hitler was doing by reunifying Austria with Deutschland and Hungary and going into Sudetenland and Bavaria. They didn't give a shit about any of that until Hitler teamed up with Stalin, the Soviets, to carve up Poland. And when they saw the Nazis cooperating with the Soviets, that's when they shit themselves, and that's when they started having a problem. That's the real reason why they didn't like Hitler, because they wanted to keep him away from Stalin, because they knew that Nazism and communism are two sides of the same coin. They fit hand in glove. The only problem is that when you have an authoritarian government like that, where the state is all powerful and is never wrong, well, what do you think happens when you have two states like that interact with each other and they don't get what they want? They inevitably stab each other in the back. Is what happens, and that's exactly what happened. The egos, the pride, is what caused that collapse. But it's always glossed over that the Nazis and the Soviets were natural allies to carve up Eastern Europe. There you go. Yeah, but authoritarianism is not a right or left political ideology. It just is authoritarianism. And I think that's a misnomer, because I hear a lot of dumbass definitions of what fascism actually is. It's a little convoluted on purpose, as is socialism. But if you dig deep enough, you can actually find real definitions of them. Or at least distill down the essence of what the ideologies actually are, and you can come up with a good definition. Yeah, we did. The only reason the Soviets were able to beat back, or at least stall Hitler, the Soviets didn't beat Hitler. Logistics beat Hitler. He literally ran out of ammunition and fuel, because he shot so many Soviets and it just kept coming. And he couldn't keep his supply lines going in wintertime. Logistics is what stopped Hitler, not the Soviets. And that's just a fact. No, he wasn't stupid, obviously. None of these, you don't get to be a world leader. Regardless of your political leanings, you don't get to be a world leader by being a moron. Or at least you're not there for very long. That's just not the way the social hierarchy works. I'm not a fascist defender. At what point did you hear me defending fascism? I ask you. I'm not a leftist. Fascism is a leftist ideology. It was created for and by socialists that thought socialism was a failure and it didn't go far enough. That was what fascism is. When you look at fascism, it's syndicalism. It literally is the marriage of labor unions, the corporations, all under the umbrella for the state. All for the state, all from the state. Doesn't sound very right-leaning to me. Yeah, whatever. If you want an example of a right-leaning government, like a legitimate right-leaning government, I would say Iran would be, because they are a theocracy. That's what a true, hardcore, right-leaning government would look like. It would look like The Handmaid's Tale. It would be heavily religious influenced. You can laugh, but it's the truth. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. I mean, he may have more religious leanings with the failed assassination attempt. There's a lot of people online that are saying that there was a mandate from God, that he was spared from having his head explode on stage out there in Pennsylvania. I'm not saying it. I'm saying this is what some people say. I am agnostic, by the way. I am not Christian. I am agnostic. I am more of a spiritual person. I'm not a hardcore atheist, because I have seen stuff in my own life. I just don't think these organized religions have got it right. My opinion. Believe what you want. All I'm saying is that Trump is not establishing another Vatican over here. Being religious, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. If the Roman Catholic Church decided to do another, they wanted to turn their wrist cards and start actually taking over governments, that would be right wing, right? It just would be. That would be the definition of a right wing in today's definitions. Iran being a theocracy, being an all-powerful theocracy with their version of the Pope, the Ayatollah, right? That's basically the Muslim Pope in charge of the country. Yeah, I mean, in today's definitions, that would be a right-leaning government. We stole the Supreme Court. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Everything about the Supreme Court was completely lawful. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, there's no, oh look, Article 3, Section 2, Paragraph 5 says that if a leftist judge dies, I got to replace them with another leftist judge. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. What the hell are you talking about? And by the way, the reason that Trump got so many of his Supreme Court justices through is because of Harry Reid. And Mitch McConnell warned Harry Reid, when Harry Reid was the Democrat Senate Majority Leader, when he changed the Senate rules about needing just a simple majority to get a justice through because they wanted Sotomayor. He warned them that this is going to backfire because you guys are not going to be in power forever. And turns out that was a good premonition because they weren't. Because shortly thereafter, McConnell became the Senate Majority Leader. He kept Harry Reid's rules in place. So when Trump came into power, we got one of our own in there. We just showed them the error of their ways by putting more justices in there to actually put constitutionalists on the bench and not activist judges. And that's been happening for far too long. And that's coming to bite them in the ass. Bigly. Yeah, constitutional. Ha ha ha. Yeah, no, it is. They are constitutionalists. We're not, we are the trade war. What the hell are you talking about? We are the import economy. People come here to sell their goods. There is no replacing the United States economy. And people will play ball to come here. That's just a fact, Jackson. Like it, love it, hate it, indifferent, doesn't matter. It's the truth. We are still, by far, the world's largest economy. Even our poor bastards have more disposable income than they would be considered rich in many parts of the world right now. And there's only so many places that you can dump your cheap plastic bullshit for the hoi polloi to go out there and spend their hard-earned dollars on, you know, just so they can have a little attention distractor. That's it. Well, you see, tariffs work. And that's one of the things why I was so happy, because I know you guys had just found me, at least a lot of you, but I have been promoting tariffs for a long time because tariffs work. They work. They 100% accurately do work. And it's to protect American jobs, as we clearly need, and it's also to promote domestic products through that protection. Now, they say the taxpayers pay, the citizens pay the import tax, but that's not true. When the goods are coming through the ports, the shipper, the importer, pays the tariff up front. Now, it's up to them to try to recoup the cost by selling the goods here in the United States. But that's not a done deal, guys. If you don't buy the foreign goods, you haven't spent any extra money. It's so when they say tariffs are a tax on the people, it's a lie. It's a flat out lie. So, I am not a globalist. I am not a globalist. Globalism is a failure. We need to revitalize our domestic industries. COVID showed us how vulnerable we were to a belligerent government in China. When Xi Jinping threatened to drown the Americans in the sea of COVID by not shipping out the pharmaceuticals and the PPE that we had already purchased, by the way, he sent that back to China for his own people. So we found out the hard way that utilizing foreign labor, foreign slave labor, just because it's cheaper doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it better. You buy domestic, you keep the dollar circulating here, it stays here. You wonder why bridges are collapsing, or your community can't fill a pothole, or whatever. It's because the dollars aren't circulating in the communities like they used to. They're going ultimately overseas. And whereas we want to keep a line of trade going because we don't want to end all trade, but we don't want them dumping their bullshit here in the United States. And what we certainly don't want to do is that losing all of our manufacturing and industrial base to go overseas because they don't want to pay fair wages or practice good environmental policies. They want to go overseas, but then they also want to simultaneously bring in a bunch of foreign nationals to our shores to have us citizens fighting for our own damn jobs here in our home country. So it's a double whammy, and there's no wonder why there's a lot of resentment going on right now. It's because it's out of control. And personally, I don't think Homan's going far enough, because if I were in charge, I would be going after the business owners as well, not just the illegals. I would be arresting and fining and confiscating a property of the business owners, making examples out of them, because labor laws are important in the United States. There's a reason why we don't have kids working at coal mines anymore. There's a reason why we were able to develop a 40-hour work week with weekends off and benefits. All right? Our ancestors fought with their literal lives to make that a reality. And they are trying to dismantle that from within. We've already lost the majority of our pensions in that bullshit 401k. And it's only been going downhill since then. If you can even get a job that's worth the shit. And then we were sold a bill of goods like, oh, NAFTA is going to be great. Yeah, we're going to slaughter our manufacturing industrial base, and we're going to turn to a service-based economy. And it's going to be wonderful. Yeah, your $60,000 a year job at the factory, you're going to be replacing it with being a barista at fucking Starbucks. Oh, and by the way, we're going to greatly accelerate the cost of college tuition because we're just going to open the floodgates from all these foreign students coming in paying out-of-state tuition because they want all that money. Fuck the American citizens. Just a lot of this shit is coming to an end, guys. It's coming to an end. Whether you realize it or not, there is a quickening happening, and it's getting harder and faster. And eventually it's going to finish to completion. Well, we can't because we're subsidizing Europe. The only reason Europe has all that free gives me dance is because we've been subsidizing their military. And that's a fact. Also turns out we've been subsidizing their pharmaceuticals as well. Everything has been on the American people for too long. It's not the end of World War II anymore. That economy's gone. The good times, they have come to an end. The gold breaking will stop. Europe is going to pay their fair share, whether they like it or not, or they're going to be overrun by the Russians. And that's just the long and the short of it. So they're going to play ball because they're scared of the bear. Well, yeah, because you don't want to be overrun by China. China. Yeah, you don't want to be overrun by China. The only thing, legit, the only thing keeping China at bay from Australia, because you're full of coal and they need coal, is the threat of American naval power. That's it. Or otherwise, they would have taken you guys over a long time ago. You boos mean nothing to me, for I've seen what makes you cheer. Okay? Let's just be real about it. What I'm saying is that the old order, the old New World Order, is coming to an end. As is this live feed, because I have to get down the road. But I appreciate you guys being here. And we'll do it again sometimes. One last sip to go. Salud. Take care. TC out.